All right, so everybody, thanks so much for listening. If you're a first timer, please subscribe and share this interview. We have two guests, one you'll be familiar with, and another one is a newbie to our broadcast, but we hope it's not her first and only time. Rachael Dotson here. She is a real estate agent over here in Rhode Island, also is involved in Massachusetts, where she does sell property there. And obviously, you all know Darius Ross. He's an economist. He's in real estate also. So we'll talk a lot about a lot of different things. But guys, thanks so much for coming back on. Appreciate your time tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you for inviting me.
All right. So first, Rachael, let's talk about the real estate market. As far as Rhode Island and Massachusetts, you know, when we spoke on the phone before the interview, you said kind of this is the slower time. What are you seeing right now as far as the market goes?
You know, every region and every state has seasonality to their market. Here in New England, we're not necessarily tied to a public school schedule like some other parts of the country. So summer tends to be slow. A lot of people are on vacation. They go out to the vineyard. And then we get another little bump in the fall before the holidays. And then things can be pretty quiet. During the winter, a lot of it is weather dependent. But yeah, seasonality, we've got a spring market and a fall market here in New England.
And now, Darius, I know you're in New York City in Manhattan. If you want to just talk about as far as a comparison of what's going on, we're not too far away from you, only 3 hours-ish. So if you want to just talk about what's going on there as far as what you're seeing.
We're beginning to see a complete slowdown in the markets. The luxury market for a while took an uptake and there was a lot of action. But currently now, a lot of the action that's going on now is beginning to slow down just because the rental market now has taken some major hits because tenants are now experiencing the pain of the rental markets. The housing market, as far as luxury housing, is really taking a real major impact because now a lot of the townhouses, condos, and co-ops are now sitting on the market. So we have something called Billionaires Row, where most of those units are now unoccupied. So foreign investors are kind of sitting on a ticking time bomb.
You know, we've been hearing these, you know, very scary economic news that's been going on for quite a few weeks now, maybe months. It's just not as talked about in the news right now because we do have monkeypox, coronavirus, Ukraine, and everything else in the kitchen sink. You're right, Rachael. I see what you're doing. I agree with you 100%. But with that going on, you know, what are we, I guess I'll frame it this way, Rachael, what are you setting up for as, you know, because it seems like there's going to be some crashes fairly soon as far as the housing market. We're already seeing some cracks in different markets around the country. Are you worried about this? And how are you setting yourself up if this does happen sooner than later?
Right. I mean, things are definitely changing. We are seeing a shift. The shift started, you know, this spring as we started to come out of the pandemic and rates started to tick up, things did start to change. What we're seeing here in Rhode Island, and again, our market is different. We are forever a cheaper housing alternative to Boston and New York. We're this great little college town stuck in between two major metropolitan areas. We don't get as much speculation or investor buy here. And even if things take a downturn, we are forever a cheaper alternative to those cities. So what happens here is always a little bit different than other parts. I think what's happening for buyers is people who could take advantage of the low interest rate, but were really maxing out their budget in the competitive offer situation. Now there's less competition in those offers, but the interest rate has taken away their purchase power. A lot of people under 325, under 350, they're just out of the market now until things really slow down and interest rates settle down a little bit. However, there is still a lot of demand out there. There are still people who are well qualified, who can still go get the house in the 500s and the 600s. Maybe they're utilizing an ARM product instead of a 30-year fixed. Those people are still in the market. Those people are still buying houses. They're just not necessarily competing with as many other people right now.
Are you dealing with a lot of people that are moving? I guess they're buying, I should say they're buying in Rhode Island, but they're working in Boston or, you know, okay.
Yeah, we are a huge commuter city. We've got great proximity to both cities, and with work from home, now people can be in Providence 3 days a week, go to New York for the other 2. It has changed our housing economy here in Providence.
How is the rental market going to play into this?
It's really tough. So I get calls. I got 2 calls today from 2 different renters wanting to get into their first house. How do I start? What do I do? My rent just went up. Like, landlords are really taking advantage of the lack of inventory in the rental market, and those renters are feeling the pain. They want to get into the purchase market, and the interest rates are making that difficult. So there's definitely a segment of the population where housing has become precarious, and it's really difficult to witness, because I can't always help everybody. Not everybody's ready to get into a house.
So when you're talking to people that are putting offers up right now, as far as the sellers, what are you telling them? Say a house is, I don't know, 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom. I know my friend just bought one of these houses maybe about a little less than a year ago over in Mansfield, and he paid $625. I mean, he's got a big old backyard and stuff. It's just him and his wife. They work in finance over in Boston. So they're making good amount of money. But I'm hearing a lot that as far as the trends go, and, I know there's still a lot of people looking for houses, but as far as the trends go, if we do see these drops in the market, that house at 625 could have go down to, 50% to 325. Are you hearing a lot about this?
That is not happening here at all. Nope, not even close. We're still selling that house for right around list price, and maybe it's taking a week or two. You've got a contingent of agents who know what they're doing. They know how to price appropriately, and buyers are highly educated right now. They know the real value of a house. So before, they would have offered you 50 over just to get into it. That has changed. We are not seeing big price drops. Houses are still holding their value. And I know this flies in the face of what you're hearing in the news, but I'm not here to sell ad dollars to eyeballs. I'm telling you what we're seeing on a daily basis.
No, that's fair. I was more so saying, is that what you would think as far as a trend down the road? If we keep seeing these interest rates, okay.
No, not at all. We might see a softening. I do not predict anybody being underwater anytime soon. That's not going to happen.
Okay. Darius, did you want to jump in on anything? I know this is in your wavelength more so than me.
See you.
Are you seeing families that are looking to buy homes, but just very heavily and saying they can't afford these homes?
I think there was a lot of renters hearing the talk about multiple offers over list and waiting, and they're caught between a rock and a hard place. They would like to get into the housing market because they're hearing things are changing, or their landlord has increased their rent by 78% and they can't afford it anymore. There's nowhere else for them to go. They can't find a cheaper rent alternative. I would say the inventory in the rental market is much tighter than the actual housing market right now.
The other question is, what's your position on private equity that buying these single family homes? Is that really impacting your market there, because they've come in so many parts of the country and they've basically bought up swaths of houses? Are you seeing that in the Providence market?
Not as much in our market. Again, we're kind of like a little island, pun intended, onto itself. Most listing agents here and most sellers are going to want to work with a regional or known bank. Most buyers are not in a position of having to use private money. I have seen it, but it's not very common. We've got some fantastic first-time home buyer programs and credits that are available through the state here that I am constantly trying to educate people on, connect them with lenders, working those credit programs, doing everything we can to avoid that private money option.
No, I meant as far as private equity groups coming in and buying the houses. I'm sorry.
Oh, private equity. Oh, I'm sorry, like wholesaling. I apologize.
Yes,
Not as much as other areas. I think, a lot of that was concentrated around Boston. We do have a little bit of it here. And those people right now are either trying to unload before things change for them. Our rental regulations have really tightened up. So we have less private equity here in Rhode Island.
Are you seeing?
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Are you optimistic about the real estate, let's say 12 to 24 months out?
I'm optimistic. I'm looking forward to a normalization of the market. Like, I don't think things are going to drop. I think prices will soften. The offer price will soften. If a seller hasn't prepared properly, they're probably going to be looking at selling for less than list price. But I think things are just going to be steady, and no more of this kind of frenetic market activity.
Thank you.
My question is, how far do you think these prices fall or level out, if you want to say that?
I mean, at the most, we'll see 3 to 5% under where numbers were over the last 2 years. I really think that's it. Like heading into the next year, I think we'll just see a leveling off. Appreciation will still be there, but instead of 20%, we're going back to more of a normal like 5% or 10% rate of appreciation.
Is that just in certain spots of the state, or are you just specifically talking about like Providence, or are we looking at, North Kingston or Narragansett, Newport? Because obviously that's more expensive areas of the state.
Right. So every locale, every neighborhood has proven resale values, and some have higher ratios than others. So the east side,
Right.
properties along the water, they are going to have a higher appreciation rate than, out in Coventry or neighborhoods that are, not as desirable or high dollar.
Okay. And just the question for a Rhode Island resident to another person that's working in Rhode Island. I know Darius probably won't get this, but are you seeing a lot of people now that live in the east side? Obviously, it's an extremely well-off area. There's a lot of politicians. I know a former Governor Raimondo lived in that area. And, many other people that have, good money and as far as living in the city or the state, live in that particular area of Providence, politicians. Are you seeing a lot of people, though, move out of that area? Because I'm trying to say this in a more politically correct way, but Providence is in pretty tough straits right now. I know the mayor election is coming up this year, but regardless of who wins that, there's not that very many nice areas of Providence anymore. It's really, to say it nicely.
Every neighborhood has its pluses and minuses,
Okay.
and everybody has a reason for being where they land.
Yeah.
That being said, there's a lot of people who live on the east side who work in other places. It's clearly a high value area. Those
Right.
people are less affected by swings in value or changes in interest rates. They're well protected, well isolated. What I'm counseling people to do is, if they can't handle their tax burden on their east side house, let's go look at alternative neighborhoods with lower assessments, better tax burden. But again, when you look at what you can get on the east side with 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, garage, and a 7,000 square foot lot versus what that house costs on Beacon Hill, it's peanuts. And so we get so many people coming from other places where the purchase price outweighs the tax number, and it's okay.
Is there a lot of people moving to Rhode Island from New York? I've been hearing that quite often, and I'm not talking about
thousands of people. Almost all of my buyer clients for the last 3 years have come from out of state.
Okay, but is it specifically New York, or is this Massachusetts, Connecticut? Where is it majority?
A lot from Boston and New York, but in June, I had 3 clients call me out of the blue from Austin, wanting to get out of that city either for politics or because they could cash out on their house. They moved here. We are known, we're out on the internet as a great place to live if you want affordability and walkability and urban density. Providence has become a destination for people who can work fully remote.
I did not know that. Thank you for informing me and the people that are listening to that, because Austin is a very hot market as far as real estate. I mean, we're seeing people from California. My friend lives in Texas, tells me all the time they're moving into Austin and other areas of Texas. So I would not think somebody would move from Austin to Rhode Island. That's a big move. But regardless of that, that was just my curiosity, because I have been hearing that a lot of people come from New York rather to Rhode Island. Some of it's for business, some of it's for social programs also. Darius, any other questions as we move toward the end?
Yeah, Rachel, I have one other question for you. With the mortgage rate increases and the Federal Reserve tapering down things, and now with the First Mortgage Company and Loan Depot actually liquidating, what do you see as ahead as far as the financial crisis that I'm saying, and a lot of other economists and real estate people are saying that is going to take the country by storm? What's your forecast or prediction when you're looking at these inflated prices and how it's going to overall impact people coming to the Northeast, in your opinion?
Right. recessions are inevitable. It is part of the economic life cycle. It's going to happen. Historically, home values have held during an economic recession. Again, a lot of people, my generation and a little bit older and a little bit younger, 2009 still feels very fresh. And that was a housing crisis. That was not necessarily a recession that caused that housing crisis. That was bad lending practices. So if we have an economic downturn, housing still has value. People still have to do their jobs. I'm not going to say they're not related, but a recession doesn't mean an automatic downturn in the housing market. Does it mean things slow down? Does it mean some people are priced out and have to wait? Yes, but we are still selling homes to people who need them every single day.
Rachael Dotson here on Fire Breathing Rob. As far as the end of the interview goes, Rachael, where can people find more about you, contact you in general? If you could give the website, the phone number, the social medias, all that jazz.
Yeah, so my handle is Rach Sells Houses. Nobody could spell my first name correctly, so I went with my nickname. If you just Google Rach Sells Houses, I'll pop right up. I'm usually right there at the top on the first page. You can also look me up at my brokerage, Residential Properties. I am one of the top performing agents in the state and one of the top agents at the brokerage as well.
Rachael Dotson, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And thanks so much for informing. Yeah, thanks so much for informing the viewers about what's going on in Rhode Island real estate, and hope to have you on again soon. And hopefully it'll always be good news when you come on.
But can I just end with don't read the news. Just call your agent. Call your agent and ask. Don't read the headlines. They're inflammatory. It's not really reality. Your agent knows what's happening on a day-to-day basis.
Right. I agree. And that's great advice. So, Rachael, thanks so much. Appreciate you coming on, and we will be talking soon.